Now today I'm going to do a little comparison between my beloved Soundtracker Pro 2 on the Amiga and the Polyend Tracker that I've just recently bought. Do check out PCBWay. They do high quality custom PCBs, single and double-sided, as well as both surface mounted and through-hole assembly. They have a very fast delivery service, so you will get your PCB delivered to you in no time. Okay, so just a quick brief on how this works, and pretty much all mod trackers work like this. But one of the reasons why Soundtracker Pro here attracted me is just the way it's all set out. It's just everything is accessible. You know, you have your pattern editor here, your pattern sequencer here, you have, you know, your samples here, you have everything literally almost on one screen except for the, you know, menus, but there, you know, it's just literally just that. And if you just slide across here, you have your sampler, and it's just perfect. You know, if I were to design one myself, it'd be exactly like this. You do know this one because it's on my intro, Zaman. Right, so basically the construct of a track, right, so these here are patterns, different patterns. Let's call it a page, right? So that's one page, because it ends at 64 rows. Then you just go to next one, next one, next one, and you create loads of these pages. They're patterns, but I just call them pages just to keep it simple. And you press P just to play that one pattern. And it plays it again and again. Use page or pattern 38. Gets into the Arabic part of it. I have to say, creating Arabic music on trackers is quite a challenge. It's something new. You have to work a little differently. A couple of people asked me about the drum beats. It's not a loop, just so you know. It's actually Arabic percussion instruments which I sampled myself. And I kind of sequenced them to play it like a darbuka. There. Right. That aside, that's just like a question a couple of people asked me about the Arabic side of this. Okay, so I made my point. You have all these patterns, right? Patterns, stroke pages. Now, what you need to do is you need to play them in a sequence to create the whole song. Look at this part only, right? You can see it just goes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's just an entire... It's just basically the sequence number. On 0, you're playing page 1. On sequence 1, you're playing page or pattern 2. On sequence 2, you're playing page or pattern 0. On sequence 3, you're playing page or pattern 18. And when you play it by sequence, so you can see here, over here, it's playing 1. And then looking at this, it's playing 2. Now it's playing 0. Now it's playing 18. Now it's playing 4. You get the idea. Now it's gonna play 40 again. Basically, that is the meat of the tracker. You know, you sort of, you know, you're creating patterns, yeah, different patterns, and you're just sequencing them in a sequence, like this, using this. You know, Pro Tracker, Octomad, you know, and this is how a tracker works. It's literally, that's all it is. It's that simple. So, the sampler part of it, you have a bank of samples here, right? 1, 2, and you know, these are my samples which I've sampled from the synth, the actual Yamaha CS or the Yamaha DX. Notice this number here. This number, on that number. Now that number is 3 on all, so every note has a number next to it, here. Now that number is just referring to the sample. So this is a synthesized sample which I sampled from, well, I synthesized on the Yamaha CS and created this. And that is sample 7. And that's basically how you construct, you know, a track. You select a sample and you just play from that sample, you know. So sample number 4 selected here, as you can see here. And the synth is connected to the MIDI in on the MIDI interface, which is going into the Amiga. I can basically just like play it using this. Okay, so that's that. I mean, similarly, I could just select sample, which one was it? D, yeah. On the same. Weather's a bit crazy. It was like sunny and now it's, yeah, you agree, don't you? Weather's a bit crazy. It's like, it was sunny, now it's snowing. Okay. I think he's confused because the sun's come back outside. Okay, so then you have Pro Tracker. I mean, this is a newer version of it, so it looks different than what you're used to in the, you know, in the older days. But it's just, for me, it's not as intuitive. You know, the same thing as I was explaining in Sound Tracker, the pages, and then you have the positions which are here, and the pattern length, and the patterns. Yeah, that's the pattern number. The different pages, and then you have the position here, which normally in Sound Tracker is over here, and it's always there. With this, you have to go into here, and then just like, you know, faff with it here. Now, the principle is essentially the same, whether you use Sound Tracker Pro 2, whether you use this, or whether you use Octamed. You know, it's just, it's the same thing. You have the patterns, you have the positions, and you program the pattern with the pattern sequencer. And, you know, you have the sampler over here. It's a little more intimidating. But the only reason why I can find my way around it is because I already know how to use the tracker. But it still would take me some getting used to like switch from Sound Tracker Pro to the Pro Tracker. Okay, so you get the gist of, you know, how a tracker works after being on the Amiga. So let's have a look how things work on the Polyend Tracker itself. Right, so you have the patterns here, just like this. The pattern. You can change the pattern length, which I'm not sure if you can do in Pro Tracker, but you can actually do in Sound Tracker Pro 2. You can just change the pattern length. It doesn't have to be 64 rows. That is. You can do exactly the same here with the pattern length. So you can just like, it's. I always put it to 64 because I'm just used to 64. You know, I've done it on Sound Tracker all my life, and I haven't changed it on Sound Tracker in any of my tracks. Probably like a couple, but that aside, let's kind of look at that. Of course, it's got 8 channels as opposed to 4. But you know, if you've got Octamed, you've got on Amiga, you've got 8 channels too. So you have, yeah, again, you have the patterns. So when you actually press a song here, you're in the pattern editor, you know, the part at the top corner of Sound Tracker where you sequence everything. That's exactly what this is, this column of numbers here. You have the slot, which is, you know, a good terminology. So you have slot 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or as in Sound Tracker you have sequence, you know, and then you have the pattern. So you choose which pattern to play on which sequence or slot. So it's exactly the same as the tracker. Over here, if you go into the pattern editor, or the pattern screen, you have 8 tracks, or 8 channels. I'm used to calling them 8 channels, but 8 tracks, right? This one, if you go back to here, you notice you have 8 blocks, 8 columns, sorry. So that's 8 tracks. So basically this indicates which of the tracks have been written to, or occupied, or whatever, and you know, which of the tracks are free. So you kind of like get the gist of, okay, you roughly get which pattern that is, you know. So you can change, you know, patterns here if you press the record button. So sequence number or slot 12 will play pattern 23. So you could just change that to play 25, 26, 27, whichever pattern you want to play. Let's check it back to 23 because it'll mess up the order of the pattern, but you get the idea. So once you understand the concept of a tracker, that will actually just, you know, it'll all make sense instantly with the Polyend Tracker. And to be honest with you, other than Sound Tracker Pro 2, I don't think I've actually gone into another tracker program and just got it in a matter of hours. You know, I mean, even when I first started with MsMadLemon Tracker, I still knew the concept of a tracker because I'd already made like, you know, 30 odd tracks by that time. So I went on the MsMadLemon Tracker, actually more than that. But anyway, I went on the MsMadLemon Tracker and I sort of knew, you know, the pattern and all that, but it's still, the interface it's good. It's a good interface, I'm not saying it's not. But, you know, it wasn't as quick to kind of get to grasp. This Polyend Tracker is the first thing since Sound Tracker that I've actually managed to just grasp everything in a matter of hours. I have to say that's impressed me. And normally tracker software, yeah, I get excited over trackers, but and unless I actually get into it and start writing it and it starts feeling intuitive to me and so forth, I kind of like shy away from it. But with this thing, I took a plunge. I paid like £500 for it, and then kind of thought, oh, I hope I get on with this. I really took a plunge. But thank God I got it in hours, literally hours. So yeah, I have to say, definitely one thing, it's easy to pick up. Now, a friend of mine, Wayne, watched my overview video, and he was actually very surprised that this thing worked with samples. He actually thought it was synthesis. Now, yes, it does work with samples. Also, it works with wavetable synthesis. So if you were to kind of, you can actually turn this song, this sample. If you go down the effects here. WT Smoother, which is Wavetable Smoother. So it prepares the actual wave for use as a wavetable synth. So let's select that. You choose to play this as a wavetable, which so basically wavetable synthesis is when you actually take a little tiny section of an actual waveform and you loop that. I've seen a lot of comments around the internet on YouTube and all that, where they always, when they talk about the SID chip versus the Amiga, or the Amiga versus Atari ST chip, or any of these, they always say, oh, Amiga cheats in doing chip tunes because it uses samples and, you know, not true synthesis. And if you're saying that, you're denying that wavetable synthesis is actually true synthesis, because it's wave-based synthesis. So all these crack throws that you hear in the Amiga, no, they're not cheating. They're not just using samples disguised as, you know, synthesis. To save space, the actual artists of these crack throws create use Wavetable synthesis to save space, so you could fit it in like an intro of a disc. Let's actually load a Wavetable in, because I think this is just getting... So here you have Wavetable synthesis, and you can, you know, my track which you heard in the previous video, if you haven't, again, do check it out. Obviously on the pattern you'll have to adjust it, you know, have the actual effects to fade the, yeah, because they're just loops really. So that's why. So if you actually use the gate effect here, if it says gate length, you can actually, if you put it, assign it to the actual note itself. You can shorten the gate. It's just one, you know, you can put whatever effect you want on it, but you can. So let's make this one a bit shorter, just to kind of, for effect, and put another gate on here, which is longer, so it's like. So you'd have to kind of, you know, adjust, because it is a loop and it will linger, so it's gonna sound like a bit of a freaking cacophony if you don't, you know, sort it out. So basically, you know, you can just mess with it and just create whatever effect you want using wavetables, and that's not a sample and that's not cheating at all. So yeah, you can do a lot of creativity with that. And not just this, you can actually do the same on the Amiga and on Sound Tracker too. So it's like, you know, it works again just like a tracker. I just wanna, because I did look at reviews, like a couple of reviews on this before getting it, because obviously I didn't want to just plunge £500 into it for, like, you know, blindly. So I wanted to see what it does. A couple of the reviewers said, oh, it's kind of like a tracker, but not quite. No, as somebody who's used the tracker for like the past 20 years myself, I'll say it's like a tracker, because it is. You know, it works just like one. You use it just like one, and you know, you can do. It's more of a tracker than a sequencer or anything like this. I mean, it's got this. It's got this config where you can actually pattern arrangement here, but it says vertical or horizontal. Now if you do the horizontal thing, right, someone mentioned the patterns going upward being like, you know, too hard on their eyes or whatever. I don't know what they said. But if you can just do that horizontal thing and they'll go sideways instead. Just like a sequencer. But to be honest, this feels like an abomination to me. Because I like trackers. I like the horizontal movement. Or the vertical movement, I should say, sorry. So you can do all 8 of them just going across like that, horizontally. But to be honest, I find this an abomination. I don't like it. Because I like everything to look like a tracker and how it should look. So let's take it back, because it's just, no. Yes, perfect. It's how I like it, how it should be. So just like Sound Tracker or Pro Tracker or whatever on the Amiga or any other platform, you have the actual note there and the octave number. You have the instrument or sample number. You have the first effects. And on this one, actually, there's a next layer. So you have 2 layers of effects you can do, which you cannot do on Sound Tracker. So that's pretty good, actually. You know, so you can just do 1 layer for one, and then just like do an additional one, which to be honest would be nice if Sound Tracker did. Okay, so a couple of things here. I'm going to go into the commands and the nitty-gritty of this. Even though I'm not fully aware of what Polyend has and doesn't have, but there's a few commands which I really love to use and some which I really need to use. One of them is this 49, which is the sample offset thing. It determines where the sample starts. As you can see, it's got different starting points. So that's what the 49 does. Whereas on Polyend Tracker, I'm yet to find it. Okay, so let's try and find it in here. It might be called something else. Randomize, random instrument. Okay, it's weird. Position. Okay, that could be it. Let's isolate this. Oh, that's what it is. Yeah, okay. This is the first time I've found this, by the way. I'm still yet to mess around with this. I've only had this thing like a week. No, you cannot view the sample at the same time as playing the track. Okay. Can sense what it will do. Actually, you know something? I want to sample something from the synth, the actual Yamaha CS, onto this. So, record. Start point's done automatically. Let's determine the end point. So you can... What just happened? Okay, I had to resample that because I just lost it by just going in the master. So if you're on record, I don't know how to recall what I just sampled. I tried to turn the volume up, you know, using the master thing, and I just lost it. So I've just resampled the exact same sound again. So let's preview. And then you just crop it, and you have that. Right, so you save this. So we're in number 7. I'm going to load that recording into that. So we just go down to recordings, enter, and then the one we just did. There we go. Alright, so now that we've loaded the sample in here, see it varies throughout the sample. We can go into here and start changing these. So we have the sample 7, so without it, it's... So let's change the sample positions. I'm used to calling it sample offset, so it takes some getting used to. Right, so... Oh, this is so much better. It's just an easier way of working with this jog dial. So this is like all the positions throughout the sample. So you may not be able to see the sample, unfortunately, but you can at least, you know. So let's do the first one as 0. First position and just second. 8. Now these last 3 are going to be like the dip dip, the dip dip, the kind of like really snappy sound. So I want to do that. I'm going to do the end part of the sample. So it's like it's 95. Okay, so now let's try this. Oh, perfect. Wow, that actually sounds really good. I mean, that's actually way easier to do. I'm used to doing on the keyboard anyway, so you know, either way it's fine, but this is just the way you do this with the jog dial is just perfect. I'm actually quite impressed. I'm excited now. Next track, you know, is gonna have this in, this type of thing in. First track, I'm gonna leave it as it is because I do like it. So there's another thing which another what you call it, a command here, effect command, which I wish to try and find on here because I've been needing it, and that is sort of like a right. Basically, if you see on this D here, the command D on Sound Tracker, that is, not on Pro Tracker. Pro Tracker seems to be like inverted or reversed, as I demonstrated earlier on. I'm gonna find this. It's almost like a, I wouldn't say it's like a, I don't know, what would you call that? So I use all these commands all the time, but I just don't know the name of them. The D command here, slide sample volume. X down, Y up. Okay, so it tells you there that it's like, the X part of it is up and down. Okay, right, so it's slide sample volume. Finally, after all like 20 years, I've realized what it's called. Let's do an 8. I guess let's... I've exaggerated it just to kind of so you hear the difference. So it fades it out, each note out quick. So it's like a slide thing. I want to find it on here, on Polyend. Searching for this, I can't seem to find this. I mean, I did come up with, I did find slide up and slide down, but it doesn't mean that. It's... That sounds like Gamola speed on PC Engine. But that's definitely not to do with the volume slide. It's to do with like a pitch slide. Right, so the closest one I've come across so far is the actual gate length, which, to be honest, feels very aggressive. This is the one I was demonstrating when I was talking about the wavetables. The highest value just cuts it off too quick, but I suppose you could use that. So the closest thing is gate length. So then, does this mean that, you know, I have the Polyend Tracker now, it has 8 tracks, it has everything, and it does everything that the Amiga can do, that I'm not going to use Sound Tracker anymore to create music? Freak, no. If you're thinking that, then you don't know me at all. I do love the, I don't see this video as, you know, the Amiga versus Polyend Tracker, which one's gonna win, you know, it's not about that. Actually, it's more of a comparison. There's a certain sound which I can do on the Amiga, which the Polyend Tracker will obviously not be able to do. You know, it's not just about more tracks and, you know, higher bit rate, higher sample rates, that's what I meant. This is called, you may get like about 5 words trying to like fight the Gamola ones. I got that. Anyway, permanently. Anyway, so we have, yeah, it's not just about, you know, higher sample rates and, you know, more tracks and you have a better sound processor and so forth. You know, I can do that with the Amiga with external things like, you know, the effects unit on my mixer or the Boss effects unit, things like that. Just put the Amiga through that and it practically do like more or less similar thing to that. More of an interesting way to get the same effect, but that's the thing. I do love the Polyend Tracker for what it can do and the sound that I've got from that, but I also love my beloved Sound Tracker, which I think I will always love. You know, that. So I'm not seeing the Polyend as a replacement to Sound Tracker, never, but I'm actually seeing it as another means to create music, you know, which is very similar to Sound Tracker, just like an updated Sound Tracker kind of thing, but it has its own sound. For example, now there is this one particular track which I did create on MsMadLemon Tracker, and of course MsMadLemon Tracker technically can do way more than... So initially I created this one track on MsMadLemon Tracker, and it's because my friend Wayne or Electronscape wanted to use it as a demo on a SID-box. Even though I created it on MsMadLemon or OpenMPT, and I do know MsMadLemon, you know, fairly well by now, I wanted a version of it that was done on Sound Tracker. So basically I did actually cut it down from 8 channels to 4. You know, when you like save it as a mod on OpenMPT and it does not sound right, it sounds completely wrong. So what I did was I had to recreate it on this, and somehow it just ended up sounding more lively on this. there's just a certain feeling that this one has, which I just couldn't do on OpenMPD, you know, so there is something different about it, this version, the Amiga version. Especially this bit now, upcoming. Thanks so much to all my patrons for supporting my channel, especially to you very kind top-tier supporters of mine who deserve an extra special thanks. Rich Garbett, Electronscape, Axel Dominator, Aaron Metcalf, Corey Ostman, Stephen Leary, Mark Bosak, Starlight Minako, and Chris Sebelinski. Have a lovely evening everyone. Until next time, adios!